NASCAR wants chaos. They want some unpredictability. I've compared the current NASCAR playoff format to March Madness. They want their version of buzzer beaters. They want some massive upsets. But unfortunately, NASCAR stock car racing is just a little bit more complicated than that. And sometimes NASCAR gets more than they bargained for. Too much chaos, too much chance. Through the first 4 races of this year's playoffs, it all feels like one big game of roulette. And I don't think that's a good thing. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove Texas Race Review. I don't even know where to start. I don't know how I'm supposed to package what we just saw for the last 5.5 hours, if you include the rain delay. I don't know how I'm supposed to package that into a digestible 15-minute format. I don't know how it's possible. We'll talk about the winner, we'll look at the playoff grid, talk about some of the standout performers, the many drivers who ran into issues tonight. We'll get to all the usual stuff. We'll put this thing on the groovy gauge at the end. I don't think you'll want to miss that segment. But first, I want to speak from the heart for just a second. I grew up going to races at Texas Motor Speedway, and Texas has never been the most eventful track, I'll be honest. The most eventful race in Texas Motor Speedway's history was 2014, the fall race, and I wasn't at that one, when Keselowski and Gordon and, Harvick fought each other. Texas didn't really have a signature race, with great competitive action or a close photo finish. That is until tonight. Tonight at Texas Motor Speedway, they somehow jammed more than 25 years worth of incidents into one fateful evening. And I just want to say this, part of me misses when races were a little more straightforward. The Chevys were fast in practice, watch out for Hendrick today. Oh, Chase Elliott leads 100 laps, maybe a couple contenders spin out or have issues, maybe a contender speeds on pit road late, and then, Chase Elliott leads the most laps, wins the race, most deserving winner, bada bing, bada boom. That's a good race. The 2022 playoffs will not allow us to have one of those races, whether it's Darlington with Kevin Harvick, a contender, literally being engulfed in flames, Truex, Busch, blowing engines while leading. Kansas saw multiple playoff drivers crash, a bunch of equipment interference penalties. Bristol is full of issues, power steering issues, tire issues. First 3 races of the playoffs, the whole first round won by non-playoff drivers. I just want a straightforward, easy to remember, easy to digest NASCAR race. Once again, is that too much to ask? Sorry guys, I'm dying over here. Texas Motor Speedway is a broken track. It is. Ever since they reconfigured it in time for 2017, it's broke. It was broken for IndyCar for years. Somehow they put on a fantastic show there the last time they visited the track. But it's still a broken track. There's a reason that there's reports and rumors flying around the industry now about them basically blowing the place up and completely reconfiguring it once again. It is not a good racetrack. It is perilous. Really fast, high loads, no tire wear until the loads get too heavy and everything explodes. It's a 1-lane track around the bottom. They gotta spray all this sticky stuff in the middle and higher lanes to tempt drivers to go up there. It is a broken racetrack, and I think many of the issues we saw tonight can be chalked up ultimately to Texas Motor Speedway just being a beast. Not a good kind of beast, a bad beast. I'm not gonna sit here and speculate on the rumored reconfiguration, but honestly, just about anything would be better than what we saw here tonight. And that's not to say tonight's race was completely irredeemable. When they were actually able to race for 20, 30, 40 laps today, it was actually pretty decent racing at times, at least better than we've seen from New Texas the past 5 years. Yeah, we had to spray a bunch of resin in the outer lanes, but the second and third groove kinda sorta worked. You could kinda get out from behind someone's wake in dirty air. There's a decent amount of passing, especially once the sun went down the final 100 laps, when they weren't blowing tires. Which is what we have to talk about next. To me, this doesn't quite fall under the same category as the infamous 2008 Brickyard 400, but it definitely shared some similar qualities. In the final 100 laps, 2 leaders of the race, first Kevin Harvick and then Martin Truex Jr., both blew tires and crashed while leading. Tonight's race set a record for cautions at Texas Motor Speedway, and the majority of them were for tire failures of some form or another. Chase Elliott, playoff contender, got taken out by what he called a flat tire. Didn't look super flat on TV, but he says it was a flat tire. Crew chief says it was a flat tire. It probably was, maybe just not as shredded as some of the others were. Alex Bowman, we believe, had a flat tire. Christopher Bell had 2 flat tires in this race. Again, this track is a beast, super sketchy, so even when they weren't blowing tires, it was way too easy to just slip and wipe out. This next gen car, it's harder to drive, but in many ways that's just because it's unpredictable. It's going good until all of a sudden, whoop, you're out of control and there's no chance to catch it, unless you're Kyle Larson. That save he made with like 10, 20 to go. Wow. Kyle Busch wrecked this way. Martin Truex Jr. spun out as well earlier in the race before the blown tire while leading. Cody Ware spun out, destroyed the turn 4 safer barrier wall, one of the hardest impacts, probably the hardest impact we've seen, at least front impact, with this next gen car yet. He also careened down pit road and hit the inside pit road wall. Luckily no crew members were hurt, but Cody Ware was shaken up, was taken to the infield care center. Looked like he sustained a significant injury, but initial results, no broken bones, no concussion, just some ankle soreness. So honestly, could have been a lot worse there. But add Cody Ware to the list of drivers who just spun out. This track, I'm just gonna keep saying it, this track is a beast. It's sketchy. It's a menace. There's a reason they moved it forward in the schedule away from that crucial round of 8 date. There's a reason we're only racing here once next year. For the first time since like 2004, they actually took a Texas date off the schedule. The track is broken, but hopefully it can be fixed when if they reconfigure it here in the coming months or years. Now, the track isn't the only problem. Look, the blown tires, a lot of that's the track again, the unique qualities of it, but the teams share some blame for that. The teams set the pressures, they set their setups to maximize speed, and sometimes they run that risk of pushing it a little too far. We saw this at Bristol. Bristol was almost exclusively Penske Fords who blew tires, likely because they all shared a similar setup. I think tonight, it was easier to cross that fine line, but still, you noticed the guys who blew tires for the most part were running up front. They were the fastest cars. So there was a correlation between getting the most, maybe too much speed out of the car and blowing a right rear or right front, whatever. So the track is its own unique, menacing beast, but the teams ultimately set the setups, the drivers drive the cars, and Reddick at the end was just trying to nurse that thing home. He felt the vibration and said over the radio he was changing his driving style, just trying to get only as much as was needed out of that car in the closing lap. So ultimately, it's on the teams and the drivers, especially when you know early on that tire wear, tire failures are a concern. It's on you to set your cars up and drive in such a way that mitigates the risk of blowing a right rear. So I'm not going to let the teams completely off the hook for that, but for sure, we shouldn't have, half a dozen or more blown tires in a race. That goes beyond just a team issue. That's a track, that's a car, that's a tire issue as well. Goodyear's put in a tough spot. They want to build a tire that obviously isn't going to blow out every 10 laps like 2008 Brickyard. A track like Texas that's so fast, has such high heavy loads that is not old and abrasive. It's a difficult monster to tackle. I'm using so many different synonyms for texting about monster, beast, ferocious. It's difficult, but between Bristol last week, Texas this week, Goodyear has work to do. No doubt about it. They should be held to a higher standard. And then there's NASCAR, the sanctioning body. Look, I tweeted about this earlier tonight, and I hate to be that guy who goes back to an early 2022 talking point, but if we'd had an hour, 2 hours of full traditional practice this weekend, would the teams have discovered the tire issue? Would they have found that, hey, 35 laps into a run, there's a great chance of these things blowing out? Would they have discovered that on Friday or Saturday so that it didn't pop up as frequently on Sunday? I think the answer is a clear yes. I think you could say the same about Bristol last week. I think Penske would have found pretty quickly in practice, if they'd had an hour or two to work and actually make a significant number of laps, I think they would have found that, hey, we need to dial back some of our pressure, our setups. We need to change some things because we're running a little too close to that hairy edge, that line. They might have gone to a backup car, someone might have wrecked, but they would have figured it out in time for Sunday, then we wouldn't have had the issue at Bristol. And I'm going to posit we wouldn't have had the issue tonight if we had practice. It is kind of ridiculous looking back, and I know this year has been okay. There have been a few embarrassing hiccups and big issues that have cropped up the next year, but overall, this year has been okay. But it is kind of ridiculous that we're in the first year of an all-new car, COVID really isn't an excuse anymore, and we still don't have any full practice sessions back, aside from a couple of random races this year at newer tracks and configurations. The vast majority of races this year, they're getting like 15 minutes of warm-up laps. It's kind of ridiculous that we have a brand new car that doesn't have a lot of real-world data behind it, and teams are getting 5 laps of practice a week. It's kind of ridiculous now that we think about that. We've gone the whole year with that being the case. Maybe I'm just playing devil's advocate, I don't know. But the point is, tonight's product was not satisfactory. Bristol, last Saturday night, was not satisfactory. The first 4 races of these playoffs have been way too random. I know there are plenty of critics of the current playoff format. I hear ya. But one thing I think this current playoff format has gotten right, especially since 2017, the championship 4. almost always consists of the four of the 5 or 6 most competitive drivers all season long. The one notable omission would be Harvick in 2020. But besides that one omission, I think at least since 2017, the Championship 4 has been full of deserving drivers. There's a reason that Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, and Kevin Harvick, as of right now, are tied for the most Championship 4 appearances ever. If you ask me, over the past 8 years, Harvick, Truex, and Kyle Busch have probably been the most dominant drivers over that time span. So I think the stats back up what we see with our eyes when it comes to the Championship 4. This year, it just feels too random. Kevin Harvick was taken out of that Darlington race by a faulty NASCAR supplied part. The steering issues at Bristol, the tire problems, all the tire problems. Like I said, it just feels like a game of roulette. You're just waiting to see who the next guy to get knocked out is gonna be. It feels a little too random, in my opinion, and the playoffs should not be so random. We can't have 2 unacceptable playoff races in a row. You just can't. Not in the playoffs. This is too important. This is the end of the season. Every lap, every stage, every race matters that much more. Back-to-back weeks. NASCAR's going to come out and say it this week. Scott Miller will say it on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio. What we saw Sunday night was unacceptable. He's going to say it. You can't have that 2 weeks in a row. You just can't. So back to the drawing board. A lot of fixes coming for 2023. Safety concerns. Cody Ware took a big hit. You don't see a driver stretchered into an ambulance very often, but we saw that tonight with the next gen car. That needs to be looked into, as I've been saying. The tires, the steering, the race, everything. There's a lot that needs to be looked at. As Brad Keselowski said last week, if this car looks the same next year as it has this year, then we failed. I hope NASCAR has pinned that quote onto their corporate wall. Everyone sees it every day when they walk in. I hope that's the case, because that needs to happen next year. We need changes. I'm not an engineer. I'm not smart enough to figure out exactly what, but naked eye tells me that the last 2 weeks have not been satisfactory. All right, I'm sorry, that was a long rant. I know you guys want to hear me talk about the actual race, who did what. Tyler Reddick won, hey, 3rd win of his career, 3rd win of the season, 2nd win now since announcing he would be leaving RCR in a year and a half. Gosh, every week he looks more and more like a future current NASCAR star. Hey, I picked him to win the championship. You guys all called me crazy, and yes, he did get bounced in the first round, but I'm telling you, the speed was there. I knew he had the speed to win, to contend, and he proved it here tonight. So it wasn't that crazy. Wasn't that crazy? 4 playoff races, 4 non-playoff drivers win. Reddick, of course, was eliminated last week, so now he's technically not a playoff driver anymore. Joey Logano in 2nd, the highest finishing active playoff driver. Shout out Justin Haley finishing 3rd. Ryan Blaney, who won here in May for the All-Star race, finishes a stout 4th. Chase Briscoe, who started like 30th tonight, he comes home inside the top 5. These finishing results are pretty ridiculous. Eric Jones, a good 6th. Brad Keselowski, solid top 10 as well there. You got William Byron in the mix. Let's talk about William Byron versus Denny Hamlin. You see Hamlin there just a little bit lower. In the later stages of this race, Denny Hamlin and William Byron racing for, I think, 3rd. Hamlin on the inside just got tight coming off of turn 2. You can see the exhaust flames. He was off the gas trying to lift, but it was too little too late. Ends up effectively forcing Byron up into the fence, a rub there on the outside wall. A caution came out shortly afterwards for an unrelated incident, and William Byron then just drove through Hamlin, clearly on purpose, spun Hamlin out during the caution period. Hamlin then drove back up, bumped Byron a little bit more under yellow. Hamlin was forced to restart 20th. He was not allowed to maintain his top 5 starting spot because per the NASCAR rules, when he spun out, he failed to maintain caution speed. Byron was not penalized or disciplined in any way for his actions. Hamlin and his crew chief Chris Gabehart especially questioned that over the radio. After the race, William Byron basically admitted to intentionally going up and trying to bump Hamlin. He says he did not mean to spin him out. I'll be curious to see if NASCAR issues any sort of fine or anything later in the week. Remember, Bubba Wallace spun out on purpose a couple years ago and wasn't going to be penalized until he admitted to doing it on video. Then they fined him. I don't remember if they documented any points or anything. Byron didn't quite admit it like how Bubba did, but we all know he spun Hamlin out on purpose. Hamlin vowed revenge. Okay, look, Hamlin made a mistake on the track. He's at fault for putting Byron in the wall. I don't blame William Byron for being mad whatsoever. Spinning the guy out under caution, that to me is crossing a line just a little bit, especially because it was so blatantly intentional on Byron's part. And Hamlin kind of jokingly questioned over the radio, like, What's going to stop a teammate from wrecking someone in the championship 4 caution at Phoenix? You know, in the championship race, they're not going to get penalized for it, and the guy they spin out's not going to get to keep their position. So what's going to stop that? I don't know. Obviously, that's an extreme example, but it is kind of BS that you're allowed to spin someone out under caution and they don't get to maintain their position. Like that's a cheap shot. Denny Hamlin was racing aggressively, made a mistake. That's on him. Byron has every right to be upset. But that's exactly what William Byron did to Joey Logano at Darlington. Remember that? Logano got his revenge. I guess William Byron's just saying, hey, if Logano got his revenge on me, I guess I'm justified in getting my revenge on Hamlin, no matter the cost. I don't know, I just don't like to see the NASCAR driver etiquette culture go down this downward spiral. Hamlin made a mistake. Byron said it bent the toe link on his car. I don't know about that. Again, I'm no driver engineer, but we've seen bent toe links this year, and I don't think you run top 10 with a bent toe link. I may be wrong. Either way, I don't like spinning a guy out under caution. Will Hamlin issue any sort of payback? Who knows? He vowed revenge on Chastain earlier this year and kind of sort of got him back at Pocono a few months back. So we'll see if Hamlin's true to his word here in this case as well. Who knows? Back at the top finishers, a couple of Trackhouse cars sneak into the top 15. A few playoff drivers DNF'd. Christopher Bell finished 34th. After his 2 flat tires, he was unable to continue in this race. Chase Elliott had his crash while running up near the front. He finished 32nd. I mentioned Alex Bowman. He ended up 29th. So anyway, there are your top finishers right there. Now let's look at the points. With Talladega and the Charlotte Roval left in this round, 2 more races, here are how the points stack up. Again, another non-playoff winner, so nobody's locked in. Logano finishing second tonight, plus 30 is in a pretty good spot. Ryan Blaney won a stage, so you look at him, plus 15. That's kind of the cutoff. You know, Blaney plus 15, not the most secure situation considering Talladega is on deck, a wild card track, you might say. But below Blaney, everyone's single digits. Hamlin, Suarez, Chase Elliott, the regular season champion who has not had a clean and pristine playoffs thus far, is right there on the cut line. The last guy in as they currently run. At the very bottom there, Bell, Bowman, I hate to say it, you could obviously have a great points day at Talladega, but I feel like you're thinking must win. Bowman's probably looking at Talladega, and Christopher Bell, considering he's been pretty great at road courses throughout his career, is probably looking at the Roval as a great opportunity. They're just so many points back, going to be hard to make that up. It's a shame that Briscoe, despite rallying to finish in the top 5, just didn't have as many playoff points coming in. Some of these guys didn't collect stage points. He's still -4. Great rally tonight to keep him in it, but boy, he's going to need to do better than that to actually advance out of this round. Chastain, Byron had speed tonight, collected stage points. They finished inside the top 10, or I guess Chastain was, 12th, 13th, but still salvaged solid finishes. But good points, but nobody really besides Logano's in a great position. So next 2 weeks, gonna be nuts. I remember there were a couple points last year during the playoffs when NBC had to show us like 3 different monitors monitoring multiple point situations and battles. I get the feeling we're gonna see some of that certainly at the Roval. And I think I'm looking forward to it. I think so. I don't know. Tonight has me a little on edge. I think I've ranted about pretty much everything I wanted to. I didn't really mention it, but there was a rain delay in this. I don't lost count at this point, but like half the races since NBC took over have sustained some sort of weather delay. NASCAR fans, especially those at the track, some of the hardest working fans in pro sports. I was at Nashville earlier this year, sat through a long red flag, got soggy, got soaked. It was a great race, but it's not fun. And kudos to the fans at Texas who stuck it out. And I will say this, they gave Texas a lot of crap. When I was there for the All-Star race in May, looked to have maybe 60, 70,000 fans there. That's my estimate. And for Texas, I know it looks bad because they have huge grandstands, but that's not a terrible crowd by modern Texas standards. Tonight, on TV, it was hard to tell. It didn't look like quite as many people as for the All-Star race, but still, compared to like last year, a better crowd for sure. And considering 95-degree temperatures, shout out to the fans there in Dallas-Fort Worth for coming out and many of them for sticking it out through the roughly 1 hour red flag. Let's put this race on the groovy gauge. Look, this is not a race NASCAR or Texas or any of the drivers should be proud of. Again, this was an unacceptable product. If there's like one race a year where there's a lot of crashes, leaders keep crashing, there's drivers spinning each other on a caution, if there's one race a year that's full of tomfoolery, okay. I expect NASCAR to be a little rough around the edges here and there, but only for like one night a season, preferably, at least. Feels like this year, and it feels like really in recent years, even before the next gen, this happens more than once a season. And tonight at Texas was like the culmination of all these silly races, piled into one. This was too much. It was too much. I want to have fun. I love watching wild things, shocking things happen for sure, but I also watch NASCAR because I love the competition. And tonight's race at times did not feel so much like a competition. Again, it felt like I was sitting at a roulette table in Vegas. And I don't know, I don't gamble, so maybe that's just not for me. Maybe it is for some of y'all, but I didn't really like what I saw tonight. When they actually raced, this was some of the better Texas Motor Speedway racing I've seen since the reconfiguration, but there wasn't a ton of racing to be seen tonight. I'm gonna give this race an even 50% because I know there are gonna be some who love it, and I know there will be some who absolutely despise it. Texas is a broken track. The teams were a little too aggressive with their setups. Some of NASCAR's rules or designs help lead to this. There's a lot of blame to go around. So I'm just gonna go even 50% on this. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think down in the comment section below. I know there's gonna be a lot of emotion. My job, my goal at least on this show is to try and weed through some of that emotion and actually get to what really happened. But of course I'm human, I have my biases and I am emotional sometimes, especially when it comes to my home track, Texas Motor Speedway. Oh boy, it feels like I've been sitting here for hours. I don't know how long this video is gonna end up being. I'm probably gonna cut out a lot of rambling, but I appreciate y'all watching. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing what y'all have to say. That is gonna do it for this episode, y'all. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR pretty much every single night. I know I was out of town for a few days, but we're back. Final 6 weeks of the playoffs. The grind does not stop. Thank you guys so much for the support, especially on Patreon. Y'all go above and beyond. I greatly appreciate it. We'll be back, honestly, maybe tomorrow. We have plenty of content coming out later this week. I will be at Talladega next Sunday. I'm very excited about that. Got some fun announcements coming up regarding Talladega, so be on the lookout. That's gonna do it. I'm gonna go get some sleep. Thanks for watching.